Welcome to the Sutherland Report. Thank you again for joining me and giving me the privilege, the honour, the delight of your time. It is very much appreciated. It's been a bit busy. Just want to draw your attention to the interview I've just done with Jamie Glazov of the Glavos Gang and much more about his new book. And one of the wonderful things about this is that you go all over the world. So that was in America. And now we are going to sit down and have an important conversation with Paul Calvert, who is in Israel, hence the clue at the beginning. Paul, hello, my friend. And how are you?
Good evening. I'm doing good. Interesting times, of course. We've just had an explosion in the last few minutes in the air. Of course, it will be the Iron Dome that's just shot something down. But yeah, we're getting this all the time, basically. So it's very interesting times indeed, and maybe even biblical times as well.
I think you're right. I think it is biblical times, and I agree with everything that you've just said. It's lovely to see you. You and I met when I was over last November at the Christian Media Tour, the care of the Israeli government, which was an amazing experience to be over, and it was a delight to meet you. And this is our second time in having a conversation. And it's not my first time in having a conversation with other friends, contacts who were in Israel, and to keeping up with them and saying, "How are you?" So, Paul, in the middle of a huge operation against Iran, this started what we're looking at 16, 17 days now, without trying to make a complete idiot myself, other than saying, "How are you?" What is life like right now within Israel? Because I'm watching loads of feeds, and I can't even imagine one time people are in coffee shops, going to gym, and then having to dart in and out of bomb shelters. How's it for you, my friend?
Yeah, it's been very, very interesting indeed. There are basically two sides here in the conflict. You've got the Palestinians and you've got the Israelis, and they act differently to what is going on here. So Israelis are running to bomb shelters, and they're hiding when the siren goes off. I was actually in Jerusalem just a week or so ago, and I was waiting to meet somebody. And while I was meeting there, I was basically next to Jaffa Gate, and then the siren went off, and I don't know where the nearest bomb shelter is. So I just basically went as close to the wall as I could, and then I saw the Iron Dome deploying, and two rockets went right up in the sky, right above my head, and then those big explosions right above my head. And then later on in the day, I found out that a part of the rocket or part of a missile had actually landed not far away from where I was. So that's the sort of thing that's happening all the time. We just heard recently that part of rocket or debris fell on the buildings surrounding the Church of the Holy Sepulchre.
Yeah.
So these things are happening. We're also seeing within the Palestinian Authority as well that debris is falling down within the Palestinian Authority. In Bethlehem, we've had pieces fall. In Bet Sahor, we had pieces fall. And then yesterday, there was cluster munitions that hit a hair salon, and 4 Palestinians were killed, and somewhere else, 1 Israeli was killed. So it's been a very, very difficult time indeed. But the schools are off, and you're not really supposed to be meeting in big groups at the moment. So that's one of the reasons why the Alaska Mosque right there, that's normally the place where all the Muslims go and pray on a Friday, but of course that hasn't been happening because it would be too dangerous if a rocket went off there and it would kill many, many Muslims. So life is disrupted. A lot of businesses aren't functioning properly. But if you come to Bethlehem, it's really different. People are just getting on with life. We don't have sirens here in Bethlehem. What we do have, we have our apps. So if something's coming from Lebanon, you don't really get any time. But if it's coming from Iran, you have enough time, and they send an early warning, which is what we got just before we came on air, telling you that something is about to come, so be ready for it. And then you'll actually get my app starts going off in a siren, telling you where the rocket is possibly going to be. And then if it's Bethlehem, we don't have a siren here. But what we do is, because I'm actually very close to Efrat, I can hear the siren from Efrat. So when the siren goes off for Efrat, you have about a minute before you'll hear the explosion. So then you'll hear this huge big explosion in the sky, and then the sky will just basically be rumbling. And at night, I've been out sometimes at night when Palestinians are outside, and you can hear them shouting and cheering and things like this. And it actually lets you know whenever there is something in the sky, you know it, because that's when you hear them cheering. So the other night, I actually went to bed and I could hear cheering and shouting going on outside. So I quickly ran outside to see what was going on, and I couldn't see anything. But then when I went onto Facebook, I could see that there was cluster munitions, which is what the Iranians are using at the moment. They were flying over the skies of Bethlehem. So different responses. Basically, people in Bethlehem, they just get about their work and get about their everyday life. They don't really run and hide into shelters, because most places don't really have shelters. But of course, it is affecting places like Bethlehem, because Bethlehem is built on tourism. So Bethlehem's just had an absolutely awful 6 years, because, of course, the first few years was COVID. Then, of course, we've had the war from 2023. So we've had 2 years of war. Then it was a brief stop. Now we're back into war again with Iran. So it's very difficult, because the tourists aren't coming in, and the tourists who are stuck here can't get out. So it's been very, very difficult indeed.
Has there has there been any, when you're talking about cheering? What is the reaction when sadly a munition has ended up at a local hair salon, as you said, at a Palestinian Arab hair salon, and sadly people are killed? What is the reaction to that, knowing where the rockets have come from?
Well, people have been very, very sad. I've seen on Facebook that people have been really, really sad about it, and it has been a real tragedy for the people there. We're seeing miracles within as well, where the rockets are landing. You know, we had the tragedy in Bet Shemesh, where
Yeah,
there was a
yeah.
direct hit on a a safe room, and 9 people were killed, and that was the tragedy. Then I went to Beersheba with Christian Friends of Israel to help
Mm,
doing a clear up project,
mm.
because a rocket had landed. But that rocket landed right in the middle of apartment blocks. So you have apartment one, you have a piece of grass, and apartment two, and right in the middle is where the rocket landed. And that was a real miracle that it didn't actually
Wow.
land in any building. But I went to help clean in one of the houses there, and looked out the window, and you could see the crater just right in front of you
Mm.
where the rocket had landed. And this house, the windows were smashed. I feel really sorry for the guy, actually, because I just know that in 10 years' time, he's still going to be finding little pieces of glass around his house from where the rocket exploded, because there was a lot of
Yeah.
glass. He had
Mm,
plants as well, so there was soil everywhere,
mm.
and his television was completely destroyed, and his door was buckled as well. So, and then we went out for lunch, and we walked a little bit further away from there, and there was even buildings with tiles on them, and the tiles had been lifted uh, there as well. So you can see that there was holes in the roofs from where the tiles had lifted. So very, very difficult indeed, and it's been a very hard time for everybody, really. Mainly, of course, Israel, because the rockets are landing in Israeli territory. Jerusalem has been affected more than normal, but also on the coast as well. So it's been very, very hard indeed. And today we heard that they hit the refinery in Haifa as well. So that's very serious escalation to the situation that's happening here as well.
Ab- Absolutely. And of course, when you mention cluster bombs. I get the impression that we remember in 2024 when Iran, they fired all those ballistic missiles that night in April. You of course would remember that when they did that, and everyone held their breath then. It's incredible. You're talking about the miracles when a bomb has landed between two apartments. But the cluster bombs are a concern. Is that a new one in regard to their
It
missile
does
attacks?
seem to be a new weapon that they're using.
Mm,
I don't really know anything about cluster bombs, but what I imagine is the rocket is coming in and it's flying in, and as soon as it gets into Israeli territory, it opens up and
mm,
becomes clusters. And what I imagine, and I would think I'm right in this, is that when the Iron Dome deploys, it can't take out the clusters. It can take out a rocket, but it can't take out these tiny clusters. So these clusters are going to come down somewhere and they cause fires. And I think yesterday, if I'm right, I think it was a cluster munition that actually landed in this Palestinian area where these four ladies were killed. So there's not as much explosion as a ballistic missile. So rather than this huge big explosion when it lands, you're getting smaller explosions, I guess like the size of a grenade, which is still very dangerous. If it lands on your head, it's
mm.
obviously very, very hot. And if it explodes as a small munition, it would kill you. But they don't necessarily do as much damage in some ways as a huge, big rocket that's coming in. So, but they're still very, very dangerous. And this is why particularly within the Palestinian area. And after the killing yesterday of these four ladies, I imagine the Palestinian Authority are going to get even stricter on this. Because I know that when I went to school, I went to the school in Bejala and I was speaking in the school and the siren went off. Nobody moved. All the kids stayed out in the yard. Nobody even bothered to move. They just stayed out there, and nobody thought about bringing them in at all. And we sort of know that it's unlikely that a rocket is going to hit the Palestinian area. But when you're shooting something down, the munitions, the bits and pieces of it could land absolutely anywhere. So it is actually quite important that they do bring the children in. So I think after this yesterday, where these people were killed, I think we're probably going to see a more serious Palestinian Authority reminding people that you need to actually be safe when you're outside as well. So yeah, very, very important indeed.
And we've got the bits of the munitions falling. We've also when the rockets have then gone into empty ground within Israel, we're then reminded how large these things are, aren't we? I
Yeah, some
mean,
of them
and
they're just like big tubes. You
yes,
know, there can be little tiny bits from the interceptor
mm,
right the way up to big tubes or
mm,
half a tube. I saw a picture. I was on All Israel News tonight, and you could see that half a rocket is in the ground, and
mm,
that's still big. It's still very, very big, and you know
mm,
it will kill you if it
mm,
lands on top of you.
mm,
So it is
mm.
very, very important that you find shelter or somewhere to stand. You know, because you do need to be very, very careful with this indeed. But again, I was in Jerusalem and I was standing at the bus stop, and the siren went off, and it's like, well, I don't know where to go, you know.
Mm.
So I sort of moved. I didn't quite go under the bus stop, but I stopped very near the bus stop. But really, you should actually have been under it because at least you have more safety being under the shelter of that than
Mm.
actually being out in the open air.
No, I hear you, Paul, and I say it with great respect, and also with other people I've said to. This is not a video game. This is real,
No,
and this
yeah,
is people's lives, and that's why it's such a privilege to talk to you and other people who are there and sadly dear friends trying to get some sleep and their sleeping patterns are disturbed, which is understandable, as you've said, when the alarms go off and then the sirens go off and people have then got to go and seek shelter. Sorry.
well, this is where it's really, really difficult for people in Israel. If you can imagine, the siren goes off, at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're a family, and you've got to wake your children up and get them to the bomb shelter. So they're half asleep, and they'll be like, "I don't want to go. I'm too tired.
Yeah.
No, wait, you know." And you've got to try and convince them you need to go, and you need to go now. And you know, we're all moody when we're asleep, and we get woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning. So there's that. Can you imagine old people in their 70s, in their 80s, in their 90s having to get up and go and find a bomb shelter? You know, and you've got to do it at a certain amount of speed as well. You know, disabled people, if you're in a wheelchair or anything like that, you really don't have much time to actually physically do that. And I'm sure some people don't actually manage it. I've actually been able to have my sleep here because I actually don't have a bomb shelter. So I'm living here and I don't have a bomb shelter. So I just turn everything off and go to sleep and have a good night's sleep. And I'm an old guy now, so I get up 2 or 3 times during the night to go to the bathroom. So I'm flicking through to see what the warnings are as I go to the bathroom. But in general, I'm asleep and I sleep through that side, which is very good because it hasn't been affecting me sleep-wise. But I know for some people it really has been affecting a lot of people, and the ongoing. And it seems as though that they've been doing this as well, where they'll send one rocket over, so all the alarms go off, and you go to the bomb shelter, you get an all clear, then they'll send another one across, then you go back to the bomb shelter, and you know that's draining and it wears you down, and also as well, I think you can get very complacent and say it's not going to happen to me, and not bother going, and that could be the time when you get hit. I've been a little bit complacent, I think, thinking, you know, we're not going to get here in Bethlehem. They're targeting Jerusalem. They're targeting the coast. But when we saw yesterday the 4 Palestinians that were killed through munitions, you know, Bethlehem, although we've only seen little bits of shrapnel come down, it could be that something could happen if it's a cluster, and if a cluster goes off course or anything like that, you know, we could actually see that happening. So, you know, we still live in a sense of danger here, even being inside the building if something goes off course. So so there's still dangers here as well.
Well, there was I'll have to try and find it and send it to you. There was a classic on one of the feeds out of Israel where a reporter, English guy working for RT, was then talking about developments, what's happening out there. And then you heard this loud noise come in, and then you saw him running out of the camera, and then there was an explosion just behind where he was standing. So that was, it might make fantastic pictures, fantastic piece of video. I think the guy is alive, but no, you are raising a very, very serious, I cannot underline it enough, very serious point, but also within the humanness of it, when you're saying if you've got a family with young children, you're trying to sort them out. Look, we've got to go. We've got to get out the door. No, I don't want to go, Daddy, Mummy, and all the rest. And making sure you've got shoes, clothes, and all the rest. I hear you. The check. And as I was talking to someone else, the checklist that she will do at night to make sure there's that, and that.
Yeah.
I hear you. I hear you very, very loudly. Paul,
I can hear explosions now. So that must have been just a warning. So I just heard a big boom now.
Right.
You maybe can't pick it up on there, but I can hear it.
I hear you. Well, anytime you
and it's rumbling, you can hear the sky rumbling as well. So the boom, and it just rumbles and groans. Yeah.
Have the amount of barrages or the amount of rockets per barrage, have they slowed down?
Well, I read on the media saying it has, but you know we're still getting rockets every day. And when the one of the leaders was killed a few days ago, there was a warning saying that there's movement going on there. They're planning to fire stuff across from Lebanon. But the reality is we were fairly quiet throughout the day today, but it's been at nighttime. And the last couple of nights has been very, very similar. So last night I went to bed about pretty similar to this time, and this is when the Palestinians ladies were killed. So I went to bed having that in my mind. So that had only just happened, and of course now we just had the explosion a few minutes ago. So it is, it's late, and there's still things going on. So um, I they are saying that it's been reduced, but the reality is I don't really know whether it is because it's still happening all the time.
No, I hear you. And Paul, you were talking about the where you went, where sadly people were killed in the safe room and all the rest, and helping to clear up, and other experiences of going to the apartment. And Israel is the only country that when war happens, people are doing whatever they can to get back into the country. And of course, understandably, there may not be flights going out to then bring people back. I know of one off the top of my head who's still trying to get back in. It's quite amazing, that kind of witness, really, to people where they want to get back, where elsewhere everyone is trying to leave a country. But
Yeah,
sorry, go on.
I've got friends here. I've got people who want to leave, and I've got people who want to come back. I interviewed a good friend of mine, Jonathan Feldstein, who's
Yeah,
actually a
yeah,
neighbor because I'm here in Bethlehem, and he
right,
lives in Efrat. So
yeah,
Efrat is where we hear the sirens go off. So he's my neighbor in the next town, and he's stuck in America, and he wants to get back home. And in some ways, he feels a little bit guilty because he wants to get back home because
mm,
to be with the people here,
mm,
but he can't because of the situation, because of the lack of flights. I also know a lady from Canada, and she's been here for a while, and she wants to get out, and she can't get out. So
mm,
that's been a problem for her. I as well. I was planning to go to Budapest. I have a friend from Bejala here, and he got a scholarship. So I wanted to go and visit him over the Easter holiday. So I booked my ticket, and they've cancelled on me. So I can't get out. And I was a little bit concerned because if I get out and something develops, will I get back again?
back in.
And I
Yeah,
don't want to actually be stuck in Budapest wanting to get back because this is my home. I have everything here. So you don't want to be paying for hotels being stuck in Budapest. But they've cancelled me. So it looks like I'm not going.
mm,
So yeah, you do have people wanting to get back to the land. And there's a great big sense of camaraderie. When I went to Beersheba, where the missile hit it on the grass, um, you had an organization that was there putting everything together. So they'd got a whole teams together. They had all the things that you could ever need. So you went in and you registered. You made sure you filled in the online form so that you were insured. They told you where the nearest bomb shelter was if a rocket was to come out while you were cleaning the houses. Then they gave you a T-shirt. Then you'd go off and get your gloves, and you'd get a broom, and you get like a little shovel and things,
mm,
and then you'd go off to one of the houses and clean the house. But they had that all sorted out. It's one heart, I think it was called, and they do this. They respond to disasters, and I think they respond to disasters around the world. But since the war happened on October the 7th, they've just basically stayed here in the land. So whenever there's an impact site, they are there. They're coordinating. They're working with everything, trying to get everything sorted out and making sure that everything is good for the people, so that the houses get cleaned. Then they put tape over the windows to make sure that it's sealed as well.
mm.
So it's a great sense of camaraderie. And many of these people that are doing this are volunteers, just going in and helping. And this is a time where you should come together to help
Mm.
the person in need, and help them in their time of need as well.
I hear you loudly, and it's one of the. I mean, I was in Israel twice last year, and it's something that has really stays with me. And also, when I'm talking to you, when I'm talking to others, which is this sense of civic pride. It's the mental attitude. I am not playing anything down in regard to what happened on the 7th of October 2023, and having been to Kibbutz near Oz and been down there, and also to the Nova Festival Memorial, I am fully aware of seeing things with my own eyes afterwards, and what people have gone through. And then when you meet people and they're talking about that, but you have said something that's so important, because I've reflected on what about that kind of attitude here. You know, we talk about the Blitz, we talk about what happened during the Second World War in regard to the bombing of London and other cities. Yes, there has been IRA bombings, etc. Just noting that. And I just wonder, do we have the same civic mental fortitude here? And I don't think we do. It's something that I am really learning a lesson from. Paul, sorry.
I think really in the West, we've got so many problems, and the West is so divided and so divisive at the moment. You know, we've got the left who are going way, way into extremes, and then we've got the right, you've got the middle right, and you've got far right. And there just seems to be so much division and so much hatred at the moment. And then, of course, you've got this whole issue about Trump and Netanyahu going into Iran. And even today, my brother's been sending me stuff and saying things about Trump and all these sort of things. And I just sent a reply back, said, but what are the Iranian people saying? You know, how are the Iranians responding on the ground? Ah, but Trump has said this and Trump has said that, you know, done this. Well, you know, well, would you have said that about Winston Churchill? I didn't reply that, but that's in my mind. You know, people would have criticized Winston Churchill for this or criticized him for that. No, no, no. You get on with it and you deal with it. What is happening at the moment is Iran cannot have nuclear weapons because they're a threat. October the 7th is partly due to Iran.
Yes.
They provide missiles to Hamas. They provide missiles to Hezbollah, to the Houthis. They're a sponsor of world terrorism. They say death to America and death to Israel. And they want to blow Israel off the map. They want to blow America off the map. You cannot have a nuclear Iran. And Netanyahu has been saying for years and years and years, we need to deal with this. How far were they down that program? I don't know. Has Trump exaggerated it? I don't know. Maybe. But the reality is, we still do not want Iran to have nuclear weapons. So they still need to be dealt with. And they've been an evil, wicked regime. Khomeini has had many years to turn back to God, to repent and to turn from his wicked ways, and he didn't. And, you know, God hardened Pharaoh's heart. Pharaoh hardened his own heart, so then God hardened it for him. And again, this is the same thing. God is using Netanyahu and he's using Trump. Whether people like them or whether they don't like them, that doesn't mean that they're perfect. That doesn't mean that they're so holy or anything like that. God is still using Netanyahu and using Trump to deal with Iran, and the Iranian people will be free. And that's something we've got to rejoice with. Yes, there'll be a sacrifice. We're seeing the sacrifices. 9 people were killed in the bomb shelter. Israel has made a sacrifice to be able to set the Iranian people free and to make sure the world is free from nuclear weapons from a regime that is a very, very big threat to the West and to the whole world. So we've got to look in this sort of light when we look into the whole situation. Yes, there'll be mistakes. People will be killed. We know that the people were killed in the school, and which was a crazy place to actually have a school right next to munitions, you know. But that's the fact, and that's the issue. Israel and America are trying to set Iran free. It's going to be costly for both sides, but when Iran is free, then the whole world will be free and everyone can rejoice. And we just hope and pray that it's actually a very, very quick war, because, of course, you don't want to see Trump bogged down in a war that goes on and on and on. We want to see the regime collapsing very, very quickly, somebody rightfully put into place, without something like ISIS or anything taking over and getting in, and then getting out as fast as you can, and hopefully allowing them to govern in a righteous way, in a good way, to bring freedom to the people there, to Iran.
I fully agree with you, and well said, because um, over here, and I am full disclosure, my politics are not left of centre, nor my beliefs, and it's very much the other way. But to then people not, we've had the the Al Quds Day and all this kind of nonsense over here,
Yeah.
and people then forgetting that the people in Iran a few weeks ago, there were a minimum of 35,000, if not far more, we don't know the full figure, of their own citizens were machine gunned on the streets in Tehran and elsewhere.
And where are the
Absolutely,
marches? Where are the marches in all of this? Where are the
precisely.
people who are saying we want justice, justice,
Mm,
justice? Where are they?
mm,
Trump is bringing justice. Netanyahu is
mm,
bringing justice at
mm,
the moment.
mm,
But where are they on the streets?
mm,
You know, you've
mm.
got the left is shouting globalize the intifada,
Intifada,
and
yeah.
then we've got terrorism on the streets in
Mm,
in America. We've had something happen in Holland. Uh,
yes,
Thankfully, Jews haven't been killed in these attacks. But when you shout globalize the intifada, what you're doing is you're putting blood on your own hands, because
yes,
globalize the intifada means go out and kill Jews.
yes, yeah.
Whenever a Jew is killed, if you have shouted globalize the intifada, you have blood on your hands, and you're no better than Hitler and the Nazis in the 1930s. And this is just an absolute disgrace, the way that people
Mm,
are jumping onto the Al
mm,
Quds Day, when
mm.
Iran are an evil Islamic regime, and they need to be taken out. The regime needs to be taken out, and the good people of Iran need to be freed.
And absolutely, and we're reflecting on. We look at 1979 and the revolution. We look before that with the build up to it, in regard to what I would call then the red green axis, with the Marxists helping people that want a particular worldview of Islam, being Shia at that time, to overthrow the Shah. And what I constantly talk about these things, Paul, and other history. What amazes me is how much education we've got to constantly do, because people don't understand this. And also with Al Quds Day, say within the UK, and what we've, as you rightly say, brilliantly say, that since the 7th of October 2023, and that when that event happened, within minutes there were people outside the Israeli embassy in UK, calling for restraint and all this kind of thing. And you're just going, wow. And then you just realize how much that is organized. Telegram accounts open up. We then, of course, then we're backtracking. But other people greater than me have worked out that Qatar has pumped 30 billion into the American education system in regard to universities propaganda. They've put money in, of course, in the UK. And suddenly all of this is being revealed to me, where the Bible talks about what is in the dark, I will bring into the light. And here it is. But people still don't get it. And I was sorry, I'll just be quiet and say what I'm saying
Another
is,
explosion
after
just
the
went off down.
appalling, I heard that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. It is amazing to see exactly how the mood changed on October the 7th. You
Mm,
know, and we've always had anti-Semitism, and we've always had hatred of the Jews, but just the way the narrative changed. And the Bible talks about, I will send out the fishers and I will send out the hunters. And many fishers have went out to bring the Jews home. And I think now it's the time of the hunters that are coming out and hunting the Jewish people and forcing them to come home, because they're comfortable in America, they're comfortable in England, but now
mm,
it's not comfortable anymore. And I was just reading the story of Joseph. So I've been reading the book of Genesis, and it made me think, and it put a thought into my mind. And I wrote this as an article that I sent out, and that Joseph became the second in command in Egypt. And then when he brought his father Jacob, the people loved Jacob. And when Jacob died, Egypt mourned for him. And they loved Joseph and they loved Jacob and they mourned and they loved them. And then after that generation had died, a new people arose up, a new Pharaoh arose up and actually made them into slaves and made the Jewish people into slavery. So there was a change, there was a shift where they were living in a great time, and then suddenly the mood changed and they ended up being slaves for 400 years. And it's the same today. The mood has changed. In the West, the mood has changed. You know, the Jews were always very happy to live in America and live in the West. There was obviously still anti-Semitism, and there'd obviously be little bits and pockets here and there, but in general, they were happy living in the West. And now the mood has changed, and they need to come home, and they need to come home to the only place where they're going to be safe, and that is here in Israel, because this is their land. This is where God has called them to. And God is even fulfilling prophecy with that by bringing them back home to the land where they will settle. People are saying that, that Israel and America attacking Iran is a fulfillment of prophecy from Jeremiah dealing with, is it Elam, something like that, I think it is, which is basically, the bow will break, the bow will break of Elam. And that's what's sort of taking place now. Is that a fulfillment of prophecy? I'm not qualified to say, but I know some people are looking at and thinking. But that's exciting for me because are we living in biblical times? Everybody seems to be a prophet on YouTube nowadays, and people are telling us that that Jesus is coming home. That the rapture is going to be happening very soon. We need to be ready. We should always be ready. But whether it's coming soon, I don't know. I'm not going to say yes. I'm not going to say no, as long as I'm ready for it. But we are living in exciting times. We're living in biblical times as well.
I hear you very loudly, and I'd just like to say that no, you're absolutely right in getting the Jewish people to go home. It grieves me beyond depth in the anti-Semitism that I see within the UK, the comments, the way the news reports things, the lies. It grieves me, and I also know the great. I'm just going to read the great Kenneth Levin he's just come out with a new book, Canary on the Couch, and it's that whole thing of the phrase when we look at the canary in the coal mine. You had the canary in the coal mine to make sure what's going to happen. There's oxygen going, gas. Yeah. The canary sadly dies. And that's where this whole thing of what does it say to your country, to a civilization, in the rise of anti-Semitism and how you treat Jewish people in your society, and it is not good. And we are, as a nation, I believe that we are under judgment. That is how I view it. But it grieves me. But I also know I agree with you, there is biblical prophecy unfolding, and that is then playing out. And Paul, what does get me, especially over here, sorry, I'm suddenly talking about the UK in that zone, is the ignorance to these things, and not wanting. Battle. Sorry.
It's a spiritual battle. There is a spiritual battle here.
Yeah.
Because God has made promises to the Jews.
Yeah.
And the devil wants to steal the promises to the Jewish people. And even the Palestinian-Israeli conflict is a spiritual battle within itself. You've got the children of the promise, and then you've got Israel with the children of promise. You've got the Arab nations, which were born from the flesh. And it seems many of the Arab nations have taken on Islam, which is a false religion. You've got a false Messiah there, which and they believe their Mahdi is going to come. He's going to set up his reign in Jerusalem and throw out the Jews. And there again is a spiritual battle. We see the spiritual battle in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. It's the flesh and the spirit battling each other, and we know that really well because we see this. What's happening on the ground here, we actually see in our own Christian life as well. Because I want to live by the Spirit, but also I have the flesh inside of me and I also want to live by the flesh as well. And I have this great big battle inside of me. I want to do what God wants me to do, but I still have the flesh inside of me, and I want to go my own way as well. So we can see the flesh versus the spirit battling out here on the ground physically in Israel, but we also see it in our lives as well.
Paul, do you? I mean, you were referring to your brother when you're saying, "Oh, Trump said this," but that. I'm not going to go down that road, but I'm going to say, do other people genuinely reach out, other friends, and say, "Paul, can you explain to me what's really going on?" I'll put my, it's like saying, I'll put my views aside. Can you just show us just tell us what is really going on from your perspective? Are people regularly asking you that, other than the wonderful media bits that you do? Do those conversations go on?
Not from outside, really. People here in the land, we have chats and we have conversations with people. My good friend Elias has been reading the Bible, but he went down a replacement theology route. So I
Right.
sort of tried to explain to him a little bit about what I believe, and we tried to have little bits of debates. We also have very, very good Palestinians here who also believe the promise is God for the Jewish people, and these are Palestinian. We've got other people like Munther Isaac, who jumps on absolutely everything, who is very, very
Yeah.
anti-Israel,
Yeah.
anti-Zionist,
Mm.
and setting up the straw man. I noticed he done that just the other day. Setting up the straw man is where you actually say a lie and then you criticize the lie.
Mm.
So people like John Hagee were on and talking about what was happening in Iran and how this is a fulfillment of biblical prophecy. And then Munther Isaac is saying, this is terrible. Christians would not do this. Christians would not be rejoicing and celebrating the fact that innocent people are being killed. Well, I don't think John Hagee was celebrating that innocent people were being killed.
No.
He
No.
was rejoicing in the fact that biblical prophecy is coming about.
Mm.
And I saw one lady, she's got Trump derangement syndrome, and she said, no president would ever drop a bomb. How? No, no, what it was if 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 you follow Jesus, you're not going to follow a president who drops a bomb. And he said other things. She said other things as well. And I thought that's ridiculous. And I actually wrote, and I don't normally comment. I made a comment and said that is really, really offensive. How dare you say that when Winston Churchill went out and he suffered greatly to free Europe of Nazism? And then you've got Zelensky, who is fighting Russia. Are you telling me that he shouldn't drop a bomb? He should just give up and not fight? Sometimes war has to happen. Sometimes I think war is biblical. Nobody wants it. Nobody likes it. Innocent people will be killed, and nobody wants that to happen. But I do think that sometimes war is a necessarily thing to happen. So yeah, so you do get conversations with people sometimes. There's a blind lady that I go to visit, and but she, because she listens to the Palestinian media and things, sometimes it's difficult to have a conversation with her. So we were talking, for instance, about Ramadan, where Palestinians aren't allowed to pray on the Temple Mount at the moment. So she thinks this is terrible. Oh, see, look what Israel is doing. They're stopping the Palestinians
Mm.
on to
Mm.
pray on the Temple Mount. And I'm saying to her, well, but isn't it dangerous? You can't have people on the Temple Mount while there are rockets flying. But I can't get it through to her. She just has one thing in her mind. No, this is Israel. And there's no point in going down an argument when that happens, because you just fall out with that. But yeah, so sometimes we do get little bits of conversations with people. Sometimes you've got to be a little bit cautious, particularly with Palestinians when they're hurting, because many Palestinians are hurting. So you've got to listen. Sometimes I try to put my views across, and sometimes, you just got to be very, very careful in putting that view across as well.
I hear you, but did you say that not many people from outside Israel will contact you and say, other than, as I said, the media stuff that you do, but they don't necessarily contact you and say, Paul, can we have your viewpoint? They don't do that. Where I'm saying I really count it as a privilege that I'm able to sit down with you, even though I haven't been able to do it until now, to have this conversation with you, and like with others. You said something that was very, very powerful, and I just want to, my my friend Brian Schrager was saying, we in Israel, we're prepared to go through this pain to see the Iranian people free. And when he
Mm.
said that to me, I welled up, Paul. It drove me to tears. And it was a very, what he said, I just thought was so profound. And so just saying, this is the sacrifice that we're prepared to make. And you, quite rightly, you made a very important point that within the West, this is all the issues we're having. We're struggling with that. Are we prepared to make certain sacrifices? There are many people that don't want to, because, and I know, yes, it's affecting me. Where certain people, they're only worried about, well, where's the oil? The oil price is going through the
Well,
roof.
this is the thing, that oil and gas prices are maybe going to go sky high. Your
Mm,
stock markets are going to start
mm,
fluctuating about a lot. But again, this is a price to pay. And some
mm.
people can be very selfish. Oh, well, I don't have to pay oil prices, and
Yeah, yeah,
my groceries are going to go up, and all this and
mm,
all that. Trump's caused a huge,
mm.
Yes, there is a problem at the moment, but what's it going to be like for the Iranian people? They're going to be free. I've just seen on Facebook, scrolling up, that a 19-year-old wrestler has been executed
Yes,
for
yes,
his part that he played
yeah,
in the protests.
mm,
That's what
mm,
we're actually setting free. Now,
mm.
don't you mind paying a few extra pounds for your petrol if it sees the Iranian people free? It's not going to last forever. We're not going to have petrol prices, going sky high forever. I reckon this war will be over in a month's time, and I think everything will get back to normal again. But to pay a little bit extra to see people free, isn't it worth it? Nobody wants to pay high gas prices. Nobody wants to pay high electricity or high petrol prices. But isn't it going to be wonderful when the women can actually take off their veils and
Yeah,
dance in the
yeah,
streets,
yeah.
and the underground churches can come up and
Mm.
start saying, "We're here," and go out and preach on the streets and share the love of Jesus and love of Christ? I think that's worth it. And what Trump and Netanyahu are doing is painful, but if it brings that freedom, then I think it really is worth it. And I think it will. I think we will see it at the end. I think we will see the regime collapsing. And I do hope and pray that the right leadership does get in and actually leads Iran in the right direction.
Well, and also we've got to remember, as you quite rightly pointed out, the Ring of Fire, Hamas, the Houthis, Hezbollah. I mean, we've got to be, as I would encourage people to say, we've got to be praying for this, because Hezbollah have been firing, which is basically, it's Iran. We say it's an Iranian proxy, but it is Iran, and we need Lebanon to be free as well. I mean, I'm fully aware of the IDF forces have gone into Lebanon, and we need to be bearing that in mind in prayer. And the other thing I'd just say, when we're talking about oil prices, because of the ideology that this present UK government follows, we've got plenty of oil. It's in the North Sea, and all you've got to do is go and drill it, get it out, refine it. But unfortunately, you've shut down refining stations, a big one, or you've blown up coal-fire power stations. So the ideology of lunacy, it comes in different forms, in my humble opinion, and
Yeah,
that would then solve that. And of course, within America, they are virtually or energy independent. They're
efficient.
not
Yeah,
relying on the Straits of Hormuz. But as I think that's another spin-off, which is actually is risen, brought all these other issues to the fore as well, to me, Paul. And also, Saudi, of course, has a pipeline that goes across the desert. There's also people that are looking at other ways. We've always thought of this. We need to get the petrol out. But if this regime is not the Iranian people, but if this regime go with all of their death cult and their ideology and the state-sponsored terrorism that they are, and the biggest contributor to that, and we look at all the tentacles, as Caroline Glick wonderfully described, like an octopus, and those tentacles go all the way here, where the IRGC think it's perfectly acceptable to come over here and threaten people that have left Iran for freedom, etc. Um, you're absolutely right when you say about this major, major spiritual battle that is
Mm.
going on. Paul,
But the
we're in the
battle,
last sort of, I was going to say, we're in the last sort of 5, 6 minutes. Um, is there any, I'll just say, take it in any direction, and also to say, where can people find any of your writing? And I humbly apologize that I didn't get round to interviewing you about a book that you had previously brought out. And what else are you up to while you are in Israel and contributing to try and inform people about what is going on? What else are you up to?
yeah, well, I'm just actually reading Johnny Daniels on Facebook at the moment. He says over the past hour, Iran has launched 4 separate waves of missile attacks towards Jerusalem and central
Right.
Israel. So that's what
Yeah.
the booms that we've just been hearing lately.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been doing lots of radio interviews. I interview people here in the land and from all around the world, basically. And it's been a real joy and blessing. And what we're doing is we're putting together a history of what's happening here at this moment and at this time. So you can go to YouTube and you can find me, Paul Calvert, on YouTube. Or if you just put in Bethlehem Voice and then put somebody's name like Daniel, Bethlehem Voice Daniel, you'll find my interviews there. And I usually put about 2 a week, 2 different interviews a week. So we've just put a huge amount this lately. Some of the recent ones that we've done is interviewing the guy from Wanahad who's helping out with this volunteer service to help clean the area.
Yeah.
Christian Friends of Israel, we went with them. So one of the volunteers, we interviewed them. A guy called Elias, he's written a new book, so we just interviewed him. Next week, I've got an Iranian lady on the show who was arrested for becoming a believer and put on
Wow.
death row. So we'll be interviewing her next week, and then we'll be going down to Sderot as well and interviewing a pastor in Sderot. And one interview that I've got to edit, which I done yesterday in Jerusalem, was a pastor who I used to actually teach Sunday school to, and he's a pastor now. And the question was how to be a Christian during war. So we ask him the questions, how should we react when there's war? Should we celebrate when people like Khomeini are dead and they've been killed? And so I ask him all these kind of questions and get the advice from him. So that should be coming out next week as well. I did just write a new book. Over the last 3 Christmases, I've been writing a Christmas children's book. So the first one was in 2023 when there actually was no Christmas here in Bethlehem, and it's called the Trafalgar Square Christmas Tree, and you can find that on Amazon. The next one is getting ready to come out called The King's Christmas Pudding, and then this Christmas I've just written the third one called the Boxing Day Sale, and they all sort of run one from another and they carry on. And even today, I've been writing today. I took a day off just to write, and I've written the story of David and Goliath in a poetry form. So I'm thinking about putting together the poetic Bible and doing 4 or 5 different stories to put into like a book. So I'm looking at that exactly how we're going to do it, whether it's going to be audio or whether it's going to be a book form as well. I'm not really quite sure. But yeah, you can find my book, The Trafalgar Square Christmas Tree, on Amazon and go to YouTube and find my radio shows there.
Paul, thank you. Thank you. But no, thank you so much for that. And I will make sure, check with you, and we get the links down below in the interview, because that's really, really important. I am always genuinely humbled when I have these conversations, because I'm very aware of what is going on, what is going on outside your window, what is going on outside your walls and your roof there, as we're hearing those noises. And as you've just said, someone's just reported yet more waves of rockets coming into Jerusalem. And I'm immediately thinking of who's there. And also with, sadly, other rockets that have been coming from Hezbollah as well. But Paul, is there anything else that you would like to round off for us on? Anything that you would like to say that you haven't said so far?
Just pray for the Holy Land, pray for Iran to be free, pray for Israel, the protection. I've got here on one of the newses that I follow that a rocket fell in the north this evening and a house, and you can see there's quite a bit of destruction in the house. So just pray for people who lost their homes. It must be awful. The house that I went to clean, it was an older gentleman, probably in his 70s. And, just to think about, having to leave your house and going out and then coming back again when we were cleaning up, we were picking up bits of paper and stuff like that. Now, the paper meant nothing to me, but these were his documents
Yeah.
and they meant something to him. So just pray for these people who've been affected. Some people are grieving tonight on both sides, in Iran and in Israel, and pray for them that God would be with them and God would comfort them. Pray for those who have lost their homes. And if they've lost their homes, then it's difficult to run your business or to go to work because if you've been evacuated out. So it's just, it's just extremely difficult for the people here. So continue to pray, and also for the Palestinian side as well, because they're suffering and they're struggling as well. We've seen the 4 ladies that were killed. We've seen no employment, really, struggling with employment in Bethlehem. So everybody's suffering through this. But we just pray that even though we have to go through this, we pray that God would bring revival in the land, that the Iranian people would be free, that the Jewish people would be free, and people would find Jesus.
Paul, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to play us out. I'll say goodbye to you on the other side, but thank you for joining me in a great discussion, my friend. Thank you.